I really find it hard to believe that it's already been a year since I started uploading to YouTube. It honestly didn't feel that long. And as well, since I've started uploading, over 100 people decided they liked my content enough to subscribe, and I honestly just find that incredible. So for my 100 subscribers special, I decided to take all my previous boss ranking videos and rank them from easiest to hardest based on the bosses discussed within those videos. The reason why I decided this would be a good idea for my 100 subscribers special is that the boss rankings are the main series on my channel, and they are usually the videos that get the most views, and that tells me that's the main content you're here for. As well, I thought it'd be a good idea to give you some insight on these boss rankings and how I feel about them now, as well as why I started uploading to YouTube in the first place. But anyway, about the rules for this video. Any rules that were in the original boss ranking videos also apply here. For example, in my friend Pedro, the bosses are all fought into bananas difficulty, and all Mega Man robot masters are fought with only the Mega Buster. As well, remember, this is just my opinion, so if you have to leave a comment telling me why I'm wrong, can you make sure I can actually read it and not just take a shit on your keyboard? But anyway, without further ado, let the Doggy Extreme 101 100 subscribers special begin. Number 5, Mega Man 2. Out of all the videos on my channel right now, one that probably has a good chance at being my favorite is the Mega Man 2 video. My main reason for this is because this video is where I started adding a lot of editing to my uploads. For example, take the segments like Flashman and Quickman's and compare them to my previous boss rankings and you'll see what I mean. As well, I am quite proud of the jokes I made in the video. Again, look at Flashman and Quickman segments, but also some other things too. For example, the music choices I use in certain segments, such as Heatman and Woodman's, and the joke I made about the Metal Blades in the Metal Man segment, though I do think I could have executed it better. Maybe with like a finger cam on my keyboard. There were some problems with the video, like some attempts at comedy that didn't really stick, but I still do think it's one of my better works. But anyway, how about instead of making my ego look like a DeviantArt post, I get to the actual point? Because, well, if I were ranking these videos by quality, Mega Man 2 would rank quite high. I'm ranking them by difficulty of the bosses I talked about in them. And on average, Mega Man 2 has by far the easiest bosses I've talked about in the boss rankings. Out of all the bosses in Mega Man 2, the only ones that I can really say are difficult are Boobing Trap, Quickman, and the Wily Machine Mark II, which were the top 3 on the list. However, everything below that is incredibly easy. And even then, I'd say that the top 3 hardest bosses of Mega Man 2 are a bit easier than the average difficulty of the final bosses in my rankings so far. As well, Wily Machine number 2, who I think I've made my distaste for ever so clear, really only earns his spot if you don't have any crash bombs left when you fight him. Otherwise, his second phase, which is the source of most difficulty from this fight, can be completely skipped with a well-placed shot. So while I did put him at number 1 due to the fact that you probably won't have a crash bomb when you fight him, unless you are actively saving them, since getting to this point with a crash bomb remaining requires you to beat Boobing Trap basically perfectly, you can still do that and bring a crash bomb to this fight and alleviate the difficulty completely. If this ranking was based on the quality of the videos, then the Mega Man 2 boss ranking would be much higher. But since this is about difficulty, Mega Man 2 lands itself at the bottom of the ranking. Number 4, My Friend Pedro. My Friend Pedro is probably the weirdest game I've covered in the boss rankings, but then again, what can you expect from something published by Devolver Digital? I mean, considering their track record, they probably only publish games from developers who start their day off with a nice, healthy 80 tons of crack. With a side of LSD, of course. Now here's the part where I would usually say don't do drugs, kids, but these games are pretty good, so what the hell. Take all the drugs you damn well please. Just make sure to make a good video game afterwards. Anyway, My Friend Pedro has by far the lowest amount of bosses of any of the rankings I've done, with only 5. Compare that to the ranking with the second lowest amount of bosses being the Mega Man 1 video, which had 10, and you'll see just how big a disadvantage the My Friend Pedro boss ranking is at compared to the others. And as well, out of those 5 bosses, I really only find 2 to actually be difficult. Those 2 bosses being Ophelia and Pedro Pedro himself. So what saves my friend Pedro from being below Mega Man 2 in this ranking? Well, a few reasons. One of them being that all bosses were fought on the Bananas difficulty, which is the hardest difficulty in the game. And two of the features of that difficulty are no recharging health and enemies dealing a high level of damage. On this difficulty, even a boss as easy as the mech can take a big chunk out of your health if you screw up. And fights like Pedro and Denny's airship are especially affected by the no health regeneration in this difficulty, because you don't get any healing items in those fights. And as well, Ophelia and Pedro, the top two as I mentioned before, are really difficult and can even give you a run for your money on normal difficulty. Starting with Ophelia, she fights like an AI-controlled version of you wielding what I think is an AR-15, though she is unable to use grenades. She can do a lot of damage to you very quickly if you don't dodge her gunshots, and the health pickups in the arena are on platforms that need to be shot down before you can access them. However, they can often be shot down by stray bullets, and in which case you'll have to avoid them if you're not at low health, since you don't want to waste any of them. And as well, Ophelia can dodge your attacks by spinning right round, which she does a lot, so it's gonna be a struggle to even hit her. And then there's Pedro, who's immune to gunfire in his first phase and can only be hurt by deflecting the bombs he shoots back at him. Sure, he starts out as a very large target, but he gets smaller as he takes more damage, and he moves around as well, which makes him harder to hit. As well, sometimes instead of shooting a bomb, he'll shoot two spiky balls stuck together that if you shoot will split apart and become harder to dodge. And you can't use your spin move to dodge it either. Same goes for the bombs. And then there's phase 2 where he unpeels, and that is one scary banana. In this phase, he pulls out two pistols and fires them like damn machine guns. And while these shots can be avoided using the spin move, you still can't use your spin on the spiky balls he spits up. And in the second phase, he shoots multiple of them rapidly. And since it's not a good idea to shoot at Pedro when he's shooting the spiky balls, since they split apart if you do, this fight's gonna take that much longer. And it only gets harder if you decide to disable checkpoints. While the My Friend Pedro boss ranking was kind of a filler video, I do still enjoy it and did enjoy making it despite some complications like it not having a wiki and the fact that recording Xbox footage can be kind of a pain. But still, I do think this is definitely one of my better works, though maybe not as good as the Mega Man 2 video. But what I do know for sure is that it's definitely better than number 3, Mega Man 1. While the Mega Man 2 boss ranking ranks among one of my favorite videos I've uploaded to this channel, I cannot say the same for the Mega Man 1 boss ranking. In fact, it's probably one of, if not the worst video I've ever uploaded to this channel, at least out of the boss rankings. This is for a few reasons, one of them being that it is quite bland compared to my other videos, since it was before videos like the Minecraft Dungeons review and the Mega Man 2 boss ranking, where I really started experimenting with editing. As well, the audio in this video isn't as good as my other uploads, since it was before I switched to a different mic, and while there were some jokes in it I'm proud of, a lot of my attempts at comedy were more agonizing than period pains, and I can't even physically experience that. For example, there was a part in the Copy Robot segment where I left a part of myself breathing in because I thought it sounded funny. Was I drunk or something when making this video? Anyway, one good thing I can say about this video is that I do think my points about the boss's difficulty and why they are where they are in the ranking do hold up. Of course, when talking about Mega Man 1 in regards to difficulty, you can't go without mentioning the yellow, laser-shooting, liquid metal alloy elephant in the room, Yellow Devil. A fitting name since this fight comes from the depths of hell itself. Yellow Devil has two attacks that he alternates between, the first being his split attack, where he splits himself into multiple segments and shoots himself to the other side of the screen. While you only take 4 damage if you get hit, you're likely to get hit multiple times since it lasts a long time and it's hard to dodge. As well, Yellow Devil is completely invulnerable during the split attack and only becomes vulnerable when it opens its eye to shoot bullets at you. These bullets also doing 4 damage. There are a bit annoying, but are easy enough to dodge. However, it is only when Yellow Devil opens his eye to shoot at you that he is vulnerable to attack, and the eye does not stay open long. And if you miss that small opening, then guess what? This fight just got that much longer, since as I said, he's invulnerable during the split attack. While Yellow Devil is incredibly difficult and the hardest boss in Mega Man 1, he isn't the only boss from this game that stood out for his difficulty. I also find Iceman, Copy Robot, and Elecman to be quite difficult, but just not as difficult as Yellow Devil. As well, for Mega Man 1, I found that the difficulty gap between bosses isn't as big as the previous two boss rankings. As for Mega Man 2 and My Friend Pedro, I found that pretty much every boss except the ones at the top were really easy, and the bosses at the top were really difficult compared to them. However, Mega Man 1, it goes more everything up to Fireman is really easy. Then there's the Wily Machine and CW-01P, who, while not as difficult as the bosses at the top of the list, can still put up a bit of a fight. And then there's Iceman, Copy Robot, Elecman, and Yellow Devil, who are really difficult. So while I do find Pedro and Ophelia to be harder than Mega Man 1's hardest bosses, maybe with the exception of Yellow Devil, the fact that Mega Man 1 has more standout difficult bosses, and the fact that even the bosses in Mega Man 1 that don't really stand out for their difficulty as much as them could still put up a bit of a challenge, is why Mega Man 1 gets ranked over My Friend Pedro. Number 2, Mega Man Free. The Mega Man Free video is another video of mine that I really enjoy rewatching, though what I didn't really enjoy was making it. This is for a few reasons, one of them being how it took longer to make than my other videos since Mega Man Free has more bosses than the other Mega Man games, and I was getting a bit tired of Mega Man what with trying to uphold one big video in between every Mega Man boss ranking, even if I did already break it with the Among Us video. But still, I do think it is one of the better videos I've uploaded to my channel, along with the My Friend Pedro and Mega Man 2 boss rankings. Considering the average amount of bosses in my boss rankings are usually somewhere around 10, Mega Man Free has put out a huge advantage with its roster of 22 bosses. But not only that, but the bosses stop being easy somewhere around 12 on the ranking, and they start really standing out for their difficulty starting around number 6 or 4 on the list. So not only is there a large amount of bosses in Mega Man Free, but over half of them can actually put up a real fight, which is more than I can say for most of my other boss rankings. As for the bosses that really stand out for their difficulty in Mega Man Free, they're a lot more difficult than the hardest bosses of the previous rankings on this list. I find it really hard to put into words why I find Needleman to be so difficult, but if you have ever fought him before, you'll probably know why I put him so high on the ranking. Dark Robot Quick is like Quickman from Mega Man 2, except the ground is now flat, and he does 8 damage if you get hit by his charge attack. And by the way, you are going to get hit by his charge attack. So combine the fact that his charge attack is incredibly hard to dodge and does a lot of damage, with the fact that Quickman can take quite a lot of hits, even from his weakness weapon, and you've got an incredibly difficult boss on your hands. There's Yellow Devil Mark II, who's like Yellow Devil Mark I, in that his split attack is very long, hard to dodge, and leaves him invulnerable, and the windows of time when he opens his eye and becomes vulnerable are very short. However, he also has a different split attack where he splits into 5 segments and then bounces across the screen, and the only way I found to avoid this is to use Rush Jet, so if you don't have any fuel left on that, then tough shit. And then there's Shadow Man, whose fight can be best described as a game of Russian roulette with 6 rounds in the chamber. Shadow Man fights by first jumping 3 times and then using one of 2 attacks. Either he throws his shurikens or does a slide attack. The thing is, which attack he'll use is completely random, and if you guess wrong, you're going to get hit because of the time you need to dodge the attacks. And since the rules of the ranking dictated that the only weapon I was allowed to use against Shadow Man was the Mega Buster, Shadow Man takes a long time to beat, which means there's more time to make mistakes. I had gathered over an hour of footage of me fighting Shadow Man for the Mega Man Free boss ranking, and out of all my attempts shown in that footage, only 1 was successful. And keep in mind, a lot of them weren't even full attempts, since later in the footage, I would restart if I got hit at the beginning of the fight. Overall, Mega Man Free is more than double the amount of average bosses in a ranking, and over half of them are actually able to put up a fight, and the ones that really stand out for their difficulty are really difficult, even compared to the hardest bosses of previous rankings in this list. As such, it ranks very highly in terms of difficulty compared to my other boss ranking videos. But even with false advantages, Mega Man Free was still not able to get to the top spot of this list, which belongs to number 1, A Hat in Time. So, the Hat in Time boss ranking. It was the first video I ever uploaded to YouTube, and as of now is the video on my channel that has the most views. So while I do have a bit of an attachment to it for those reasons, quite frankly, this video has aged worse than a carton of milk left out in the summer in Saudi Arabia. This is for a few reasons similar to the Mega Man 1 boss ranking, what with the audio not being as good since it was before I switched to a different mic, and it being quite bland compared to my other uploads since it was before I really started experimenting with editing. Anyway, the only reason that the Hat in Time boss ranking is this high on the list is the Seal the Deal DLC, which introduced Death Wish mode, which among other challenges contained rematches against the 4 end of chapter bosses. And these rematches are harder than fucking diamonds. Seriously, if Death Wish mode didn't include these rematches, then a Hat in Time would be at the bottom of this list, below even the Mega Man 2 boss ranking. But the boss rematches included in Death Wish skyrockets this ranking all the way to the top, making it easily the boss ranking that has the hardest bosses out of any I've done. Starting with the more tame of the 4 boss rematches, we have DJ Grooves and the Conductor, as well as Mafia Boss EX. In the case of the Conductor and DJ Grooves fight, not only are the attacks buffed, but you have to fight against both at the same time. And when they're using different attacks at the same time, well, just look at how much you have to dodge here. All I can really describe it with is chaotic. The Mafia Boss EX fight isn't as chaotic as the fight with the directors, but it is just as difficult. Not only are his attacks buffed, but it also takes longer for him to become vulnerable when using them. For example, in the original Mafia Boss fight, when he used the helicopter attack, he's vulnerable for the whole attack, but in this fight, he's only vulnerable at the end of it. As well, for some of the attacks like the spin and charge attacks, you might have to avoid a falling sack that appears to try and predict where you're gonna go next. This is especially difficult to deal with during the Mega Charge, since that attack was already hard enough to avoid. I'd say I died 30 times each before I beat DJ Grooves and the Conductor or Mafia Boss EX. And I also only died 30 times before beating Mustache Girl EX. The first time. The second time I beat Mustache Girl EX when getting footage for the video was after 216 failed attempts. Just think about that for a second. 216 attempts to beat one boss. That is quite frankly insane, and might be the most I've died to any boss before beating them, though in many cases I wasn't counting. One of the main reasons why Mustache Girl EX is so difficult is because you don't get any healing in this fight at all until the final phase. And you only have 4 HP in this game, so every hit you take is incredibly punishing. And of course, Mustache Girl EX's attacks are now buffed. For example, with the laser, it now sweeps around the arena, and the first time you get close to her while she's using it, she teleports away. And later in the fight, she'll throw out timepieces when she uses the laser, and she also throws out timepieces during her shockwave attack. And the final phase is a constant barrage of laser attacks, shockwaves, timepieces falling, and the sideways hazards the timepieces create. It can only be described as pure chaos, and while you do get healing during this phase, the intervals between when you do are pretty big, so it's still very easy to die. And then there's the hardest boss in a Hat in Time, Ultra Snatcher. First off, Snatcher's purple laser attack now emits a shockwave when he uses it. This gets especially hard to avoid when he mixes them up with his other attacks, as well as when he spams his attack where he summons free of the purple laser blast. And as well, sometime when he uses his triple laser attack, it tracks you, which makes it even harder to dodge. Ultra Snatcher's other attacks include him teleporting and summoning shockwaves, as well as throwing potions at you, and having his minions circle the arena while he shoots lasers at you. He has even more attacks than I listed here, but I don't have nearly enough time to talk about them in this segment. And this isn't even the hardest version of the fight, because at the end of the Seal the Deal boss rush, you fight against a stronger version of Ultra Snatcher that combines his attacks with attacks from the previous Death Wish bosses. However, the one I'm talking about here is from Breaching the Contract. The reason I'm not talking about the one from Seal the Deal is because I can't even reach him. I'm just not able to beat Mustache Girl EX in the boss rush. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter, as Ultra Snatcher would still be at the top of the Hat in Time boss ranking, and a Hat in Time would still have the hardest bosses out of any boss ranking I've done. And with that, we are nearing the conclusion of the Dog Extreme 101 100 subscribers special. But don't click off just yet, as there are still a few things I want to talk about. Namely, why I started creating boss rankings and uploading to YouTube in the first place, like I said I would tell you about in the intro. One thing that's interested me for a long time is video game challenge, specifically the challenge of boss battles. This is because by their very nature, boss battles are a lot more personal than a level or regular enemy. And one of the videos I enjoyed watching on YouTube the most were top 10 hardest bosses countdowns. And yes, those types of videos are pretty oversaturated, but I still did enjoy most of the ones I watched. Later, I would discover channels like The Democracy and Sunburned Albino, whose main content consists of boss rankings, specifically the type that ranks from easiest to hardest, and I found myself really enjoying that type of content. However, when I searched for other boss rankings, I found that this genre was quite undersaturated, at least when it came to the ones that ranked the bosses from easiest to hardest. So I decided to create my own boss rankings to add more to a type of video that I find to be heavily underused on YouTube. As for my other videos like my memes or the Minecraft video I did with Liam, I do it for variety's sake, just in case you're getting bored of the boss rankings. But anyway, that's the reason why I decided to start uploading to YouTube. I know it's not a particularly interesting story, but it is a special occasion, so I thought I'd tell you about it. But anyway, with that is the conclusion of the Doggy Stream 101 100 subscribers special, and once again, I just want to say that I find it incredible that you guys managed to get me to over 100 subscribers in less than a year. I really thought it would take longer than that. So let me just say thank you. Some videos of mine you should look out for in the future are the Megaman 4 boss ranking, potentially a Friday Night Funkin' video specifically about its mods, a Minecraft Dungeons boss ranking and re-review since there's only one DLC left to be released in the season pass, an Undermined boss ranking since the Royals update is now on Xbox. However, that one may take a while since I usually do boss rankings under hardest difficulty, and Undermine's difficulty is based on how many times you pick up the summoning stone at the end of a run. And while the limit of summoning stones you can get is very large, I decided to go with 30 since that's how many times you need to lift it to get the Less Suffer Together achievement, which is the final achievement related to the summoning stone in the game. And considering I use Megalovania as the music for the #1 spot in my boss rankings and as my outro music, an Undertale boss ranking might be in the future. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video, why not leave a like? And if you enjoyed the rest of the content on my channel, why not subscribe and turn on notifications? And remember, 100 rounded up to infinite zeros is infinity, so I'm basically the most subscribed YouTube channel at this point, and see you on the next video.